Hi there, my name is Amber. I work in the Employee Wellbeing Service in Cwmtaf Morgannwg University Health Board, and this is a recording of our Building Resilience workshop. The first half of the video, we will be looking at the importance of looking after our well-being, and within the second half, we will then be looking at ideas on how to protect and manage our own well-being. Before we get started, I'd just like to make you aware that there will be different reflection points during the video, but you might want to make some notes and reflect on different questions that I might ask. So you might find it helpful to grab pen and paper so you can make some notes if you'd like, and even pause the video if you need longer to think. So please feel free to pause the video now if you do want to grab a pen and paper. So why is looking after our well-being important? As we are aware, working in healthcare is hard. We work in a setting that is incredibly stretched and highly demanding, which will inevitably have an impact on our well-being. However, we also recognise that we can't control the system. We can't control everything that causes us to feel stressed, overwhelmed, or anxious. So what can we control? We can control how much we prioritise our well-being. We can control how we respond to difficult situations, although this is easier said than done, and what we do to look after ourselves within difficult environments. Now, not all stress levels are bad for us. We need certain levels of stress to motivate us, to get out of bed in the morning, to focus, or even to learn new things. It's when we experience too much stress and have difficulties in coping is when this becomes a problem for us. Now, the stress bucket analogy can be a very helpful tool to help us assess where our current stress levels are. The way the stress bucket analogy works, it describes and shows that everyone is born with a different size or shape bucket, and this is usually dependent from an individual's genes or their past experiences. A bigger bucket suggests that that person might be able to handle more stress compared to a smaller size bucket. In this analogy, water represents stress in our lives, and every time we encounter stress, water gets added to this bucket. Now, I'd like you to take a moment and think about stresses within work adds water to your bucket. It could be things such as IT, maybe not taking your lunch break. Please feel free to pause the video now and jot down some ideas. Next, let's think about home. What type of things add water to your bucket at home? It might be chores that feel like they never end, or it might be other responsibilities that we have outside of work. Again, please feel free to pause the video. And finally, society. Now, this might seem a bit of a strange one. However, we want you to think about the wide society and what adds water to your bucket from within that. For example, it could be things such as the news. It might even be a local community Facebook page. Please take a few moments again and think about what fills up your bucket within society. Now that we've filled the bucket, I want to think about how much of those stresses that you've named can we control? If we think about it, a lot of the stresses you named are probably not within our control. And what the bucket analogy is showing us is while we will always encounter stress, we can't stop that from happening. However, we can learn to drain some of this water by poking holes within this bucket. What I mean when I say poking holes is how we cope with stress. When we have healthy coping strategies, for example, exercising, spending time with family and friends, this will allow the water to drain out of the bucket. These are things we might enjoy doing and naturally release some of that stress. It's important to remember, however, we can have unhelpful coping strategies, which means while it might feel the water is being drained, this is only temporary, and actually it might be adding more water into the bucket. If we use alcohol as an example, alcohol might bring us temporary stress relief from a stressful day. However, the next day we might have a hangover. We could experience anxiety as part of that hangover. And as a result, we've added more water into the bucket and only temporarily released that stress. And if we are purely only relying on alcohol to manage our stress levels, In the long run, you can also see how this is continuously adding more stress into our bucket. Now, I want you to take a few moments again and think about what helps you to drain the water from your bucket at work. Please feel free to pause the video to discuss. And now let's think about home. And finally, society. I hope you find this too helpful going forward to allow you to start noticing when your stress levels are getting too much for you. As we can see, we don't have one bucket for home and one bucket for work. We only have one bucket, which means it's very important for us to keep an eye on our water level always. I want you to start by noticing. You might go away from today's session and just start noticing when things are starting to get too much for you. And perhaps thinking about, are there any early warning signs? We might consider things such as not sleeping well, maybe we're more irritable, perhaps our anxiety is heightened. Please feel free to pause the video once again to think. Now let's also think about the next question on the screen. When do you need to do something to protect your well-being? Now this is a slight trick question, as we need to be protecting our well-being all the time, especially before we become unwell. It's important to have strategies in place continuously. Otherwise, if we don't, we might become too unwell to help our own well-being. One main way to protect our well-being is through creating healthy habits. On the second half of this video, we are now going to be taking a look at what types of healthy habits will help support us with protecting our well-being. The way we create a healthy habit, we first need to make a plan. Small, reasonable goals and specific actions that you will take to move towards them. Keeping a record, you might find it helpful to write this on paper or on your phone, perhaps even on a calendar, any way that you want to record how successful you've been, and also note down any difficulties you think you might encounter and how to perhaps overcome them. It's important to remind yourself why this is important. There will be times when this is hard to maintain new behaviours, so remind yourself why it's important to look after yourself and what this means to you. Be patient and compassionate with yourself. Habits are not formed overnight. Remember, these things take time, and you've already made a positive step by coming to this workshop today. We need to make looking after our well-being a habit, not only looking after our well-being when our bucket is overflowing. We're now going to run through some ideas we can do to look after our well-being. Now, some of these things might seem simple or even obvious, but sometimes we overlook the simple and obvious things when we have a lot going on in our lives, and it can serve as a nice reminder. The first thing we're going to look at is hobbies. Now, spending time on activities that you enjoy can help to improve your mental health and well-being. Hobbies can boost your mood, provide a positive distraction, and can allow you to top up your batteries. Research has shown that people with hobbies are less likely to suffer from low moods, stress, and depression. What do you enjoy doing in your free time? It could involve learning a new skill, challenge yourself perhaps to achieve a certain goal. Really think about, is there anything that you used to do prior that you don't do anymore? Something you really enjoyed? And if you no longer do that activity no more, what is the reason? Are there any barriers on doing them on a regular basis? Is there any way around that you could preempt this to try and achieve this again? How could you prioritise this into your weekly schedule? Again, please feel free to pause the video if you'd like to discuss this further. The next habit we're going to look at is eating well. Now, we often tell ourselves we should eat well, but what does that actually look like? Now, a balanced diet should consist of carbs, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals, in order to get all the nutrients we need to fill the body and stay both physically and mentally well. Dieting can lead to restrictive habits, lack of concentration, energy, motivation, and have a negative relationship with food. Think about using food to fuel the body to have the best chance to face difficult things that happen in life. Recognizing eating in response to an emotion. Now, eating in response to emotion is very common. Rarely do we wait for hunger cues to prompt us to eat. This isn't always a bad thing. It's great that food can comfort us. However, it's important to recognize when we are using food to cope with difficult emotions. Next, let's think about mindful eating. Now, are there distractions in your daily life that cause you to eat mindlessly? For example, if you're at your desk and there happens to be a box of chocolates there, are you just eating the chocolates because they're on the desk rather than actually wanting them? It's important to recognize when we are eating mindfully and eating mindlessly. Think about the effects of caffeine and alcohol on your body's ability to be well. These substances can mimic symptoms of anxiety, making us feel worse on a daily basis. And finally, staying hydrated. Don't forget to consume water throughout the day, not just in the forms of tea and coffee. Next, let's look at sleep. Sleep is an essential function that allows your body and mind to recharge, leaving you refreshed and alert when you wake up. Healthy sleep also helps the body remain healthy and stave off diseases. Without enough sleep, the brain cannot function properly. This can impair your ability to concentrate and think clearly. So what can we do to promote better sleep? We can switch off our devices at least 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Relax before bed by having a bedtime routine. Set a worry time and write a to-do list. If possible, go to bed and wake up roughly at the same time each day. Don't rely regularly on napping. Don't consume alcohol or caffeine late in the day. Exercise during the day. Don't eat too late. And keep your bedroom for sleep. Now, I can appreciate those tips are quite fast. If you feel that you need more tools to help you with your sleep, if sleep is a concern for you and you would benefit from more advice, we do have another workshop on sleep, which will be linked in the description below. Or please feel free to reach out to us, the Wellbeing Service, to discuss this further. Social connection. Feeling connected to people around us can really help to support our well-being. Who do you have in your life that you can connect with? Who do you enjoy spending time with? Who can you share your experiences with? Confiding in others can be cathartic. Make use of the connection around you when you're finding things difficult. This might be people in work who understand what you're experiencing, as they are probably experiencing similar things. Or it might be people outside of that environment that can provide an objective perspective. Next, we have enjoyable movement or exercise. Regular exercise has been shown to be as effective as treating symptoms of depression as antidepressants. It can improve stress, anxiety, and depression, and can also improve sleep quality. With enjoyable movement, this doesn't mean an hour in the gym. Be creative. Find something you enjoy doing. This could be dancing, gardening, anything that moves your body and feels good will help to improve your mood. Next, we have mindfulness. As you can see on the screen, we have two people. One person has a bubble full of different things, such as their car problems, perhaps, family. There's lots of different kind of worries within that bubble that person is thinking about. Whereas the other person is thinking about the park and enjoying the walk they're currently doing. We often go through life with our minds wandering, not really here in the present moment. Mindfulness is the opposite of this. It's about paying attention to the present moment with acceptance and non-judgment. Acceptance doesn't mean being dormant or resigning ourselves to things, but accepting what we've done to have the power to change. People often practice mindfulness using formal meditations and other informal practices. We do offer mindfulness sessions within the Wellbeing Service. And again, if there's something you'd like to look into more, please feel free to get in touch via our access form, which will be linked in the description. There are also a lot of apps available out there for practicing mindfulness and meditation. Mindful.org is also a good resource to start. And finally, SMART goals. Now, I don't expect you to go away from today's session and create all of these healthy habits which we have just discussed today. But I would encourage you to start reflecting on one thing you're going to do for yourself and make a commitment that is just for you. Whether that is creating one healthy habit to begin with, or just start by noticing. Some people find it helpful to use SMART goals. Now, not everyone might want to use SMART goals, as this might remind you of school, but if you'd like to use SMART goals, remember, for it to be a SMART goal, the goal needs to be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And remember, we're not asking you to change everything all at once. Just start with one thing you'd like to make commitment to for yourself. Thank you for joining me for today's session. I hope you found it of use. To conclude, I would encourage you to reflect on the final points seen on the screen. Firstly, ask yourself, what has resonated with me most during today's session? What have I noticed about my well-being during this session? And finally, what is one thing I can do now to support my own well-being after this session? If you require further support, you can see more information on our website at ctmuhb.nhs.wales/staff/employee wellbeing. Here you will find links to our access form and our emotional care pathway, which highlights all of our services. Also remember, you have access to Vivup. Vivup not only provides 6 counselling sessions for staff, they also have a 24/7 telephone helpline, which staff can access 24/7, 365 days a year. This can be accessed through their telephone number on 033 03 800 658. I hope you enjoyed today's session and take care. Thank you.